He is an adept at managing delivery for diverse clients in multiple geos, leading concurrent project teams through all phases of software development lifecycle and improving bottom line through productivity and operational efficiencies. With 21 plus years of IT industry experience, Mr. Patra possesses a well-rounded experience of leading various functional roles. He is skilled in collaborating with all levels of the organization to drive key initiatives and achieve business objectives. I welcome Mr. Antaryami Patra to the dais. Sir, please. I now request Abha Lal to felicitate Mr. Patra with a sapling. Our second panelist is Mr. Harish Sharma, Group Vice President and Head, HR, IT and Admin, Toyota Financial Services. Mr. Sharma is a passionate leader with 17 plus years of experience in banking and financial services industries. Experienced in managing key enablement functions of human resources, information technology, information security, cyber security, and administration, Mr. Sharma possesses a strong track record in building capabilities and teams from scratch, driving business-critical initiatives, and making clear difference to the organization. With the expertise in setting up clear vision, he is always open for newer challenges and cherish learning from experiences for future. I welcome Mr. Harish Sharma to the dais. I now request Akshat Jain to felicitate Mr. Sharma with a sapling. Our third panelist is Mr. Magesh Sambasivan, Head, Human Resources, Society General Global Solutions Center. An alumnus of XIM Bhubaneswar, Mr. Sambasivan is an experienced HR professional with demonstrated ability to engage, influence, and build relationships with diverse stakeholders across the globe to deliver results in line with organizational practices. He has played a variety of HR leadership roles and has managed the human resources function or specialized areas in HR in the IT and the banking industry. Mr. Sambasivan has significant experience in the areas of leadership development, change management, mergers and acquisitions, compensation and benefits, and talent management. He has worked on assignments in the US, Singapore, and Philippines, managed teams consisting of employees from different nationalities, and has driven large-scale change initiatives. I welcome Mr. Magesh Sambasivan to the dais. Please, sir. I now request Debasi Spari to felicitate Mr. Sambasivan with a sapling. The moderator for our session, Professor Jose Maria Olit, is a Director International HR, MBA at Magellan Institute, Paris, France. He is a visiting faculty for the subject International HRM at Xavier School of Human Resource Management. Professor Jose is involved in consulting and interim management missions with multinational companies in the field of post-merger activities and intercultural awareness. He possesses more than 38 years of industry experience in diverse areas, particularly in HR. We welcome Professor Jose Maria to the dais. I now request Sneha Kamat to felicitate Professor Jose Maria with a sapling. I now request our moderator to kindly begin with the panel discussion. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much for your kind words to all of us. And I'm very honored. I first was very honored by this invitation to moderate the panel. Then I got worried, thinking that I was probably one of the most senior in terms of age. I mean, HR person, and I'm supposed to moderate something about the future of HR and new technologies, which frankly, I guess my children would not believe I'm doing this today. But thinking about this, and everybody starting this meeting has said a little bit of that, it's something fascinating coming on to us. When preparing a little bit, I went, obviously, where do you go now when you look for ideas and views? You go on the internet. So I went on the internet, and I was reading a few key words about those topics: artificial intelligence, SMAC, SMAC, or whatever way we want to call it. And some of the buzzwords coming where it is game-changing. It is a unique opportunity. It's exciting times. So that does show that the students who chose the topic were totally right. We are at the heart of something major coming on to HR. Everybody does recognize when we think of it that those two things, AI, sorry, I told you I was not very good at technology, so thank you. AI, SMAC are very important in terms of the way they impact the processes of HR. We know that it's going to change. It has already changed. Recruitment, performance management, talent management, all sorts of things are now directly impacted. But I think today we will try, and when we discussed a bit earlier this morning about this, also to look at the other side of that is what does that mean for HR as a function, as HR practitioners, which you are going to be in the coming future, in terms of skills, in terms of mindset, in terms of attitudes we should have, you should have, to manage that properly. Father Augustine was mentioning those two sides of change, technology, and I would translate a little bit what he said, people, social, and things like this. I think we should be very attentive, and I hope through what the panelists will say and your questions, we will touch on those two dimensions of that huge change coming on to us. So the panelists have been introduced. I'll ask them when they go on the floor or from their seat as they prefer to expand a little bit, not so much on their present job, but how they came to doing HR. It was fascinating this morning to understand that none of them was born as HR, and neither was I. So yes, and many of you did not start with HR. So how did we get to doing HR? So maybe go back a little bit in their career and explain how they made it. And then do their opening statement, which is the core part of the presentation on artificial intelligence and SMAC. We will then turn to your questions, students, with a few rules, basic rules. First is that when you stand up, first you stand up. Second, you wait for the microphone. Third, you introduce yourself, your name and your class, which year you are in, so that we have a feel of who you are. And then two important things, you are there to ask questions, not to make statements. So that has to be a question, either directed to one of the panelists, because you would like to react on something one of them would have said, or a more global question, and then say it's an open question, and we'll find a way to moderate and make sure everybody can give their views to that. So, and obviously be brief if we want everybody to have a chance of exchanging with us. And then at the very end, a few minutes before we break, I'll stop the discussion process That's why moderators are there to stop at some point. And I'll ask each of them for a brief wrap-up, takeaway comment they had from a very personal perspective, mostly, after this very interesting morning. Thank you, and we get started. So would the first panelist, what do you prefer? You do it from here, from there?
I can do it.
Okay, okay.
Very good morning to all of you. My name is Antaryami Patra. I'm from SCL Technology. Being part of corporate HR now, so I think somebody has actually picked up my profile from LinkedIn, which talk about my career in software delivery as such. So most part of my career, I was in delivery, consulting to delivery, then to HR. A very interesting transition to into HR. Somewhere in 2010 and 11, when our CEO, Mr. Vineet Nair, he said, our actually bottom line was very, it was not comparable with our competitors at that time, though in the revenue size or realization per employee was very high, but the bottom line was not in comparison to our competitors, the best one. And then we created a team which is actually look at the operation aspect, primarily people practices, and so that will create a bottom line of 100 million out of the pure productivity improvement, which is actually involve people. So from there, actually, I transitioned into HR. Today, I manage HR technology, HR analytics, and talent supply chain, COE, for SCL Technology. So to the topics, which is AI and SPAC, very interesting. But the way I see it is more of an enabler for the HR practices that we actually perform as a day-to-day job. But it is actually what it does is, it actually free up the HR professional to do the routine or transactional jobs and actually move them to do which is more strategic in nature, closer to business objective, and to realize business objective, which is actually translated to revenue and margin. End of the day, it is commerce. End of the day, everybody who works towards some business objective, which is linked to either revenue or margin. So as a HR professional, if you say that we are only actually linked to people, that will not help. It is actually beyond how you enable people to realize business objective. So that is what actually come out. And these two, AI and SMAC, is actually enabling you to do that because they free up your bandwidth from the daily transaction and make sure that you are actually doing strategic role and aligned to business. And there are a lot of things that are actually happening in an AI space specifically. SMAC, like the cloud aspect of it, it is an old term now. So many of the HR processes which is automated actually moving to cloud. And then in most of the companies or industry, if you see, the core HR processes like payroll processing or your performance management or any client, it's actually employee engagement or employee experience, they're all moving to cloud-based platform. And then if you look at the mobility aspect of it, which is primarily related to employee experience in the whole hire to retire life cycle, it's from the candidate to back to the retiree, how you are engaging the employee. So that actually comes out that way. And then if you look at social, we are engaging, we have got our own platform. It's not audible. So the way if the mobility has been used today is, I'll take a small example, like the candidate when I'm actually hiring, and then we go out and get profiles and engage with the candidate, what experience we are giving to the candidate, because to be interested to join your company, there are so many companies who are actually approaching the same candidate, but at the end of the day, how we are engaging them. So that's how that will be enabled through mobile, because today, if you look at the smart smartphone usage, it is very high. I mean, most of the young generation carrying smartphones. Now, how you enable your company's experience of engaging with the candidate through mobile, that actually whole aspect come to the talent acquisition side of it. Similarly, within the organization, how you are engaging with the employee by various aspects of your learning objective, how you can be enabled through mobility. So that's a whole aspect how AI is being used. I'll just give an example of our talent acquisition. Today, if you look at, we are hiring about 40,000 people a year. Annually, we hire about 40,000 people, and this is a huge numbers. And then the whole process has been automated, and then what we are actually doing it is basically, you take a small step like interest check. How you do interest check with the candidate, they are interested to actually join SL technology or not. So you used to call up each candidate so that, okay, this is a job description, you explain the JD, you create interest. Instead of that, today you have got a bot which actually, what it does, before that we have got a AI technology. I call it, it's not AI, it's a machine learning. What actually does is actually scan all my profile, match it to JD, say that this is the sort of shortlisted candidate. That bot actually pick up from there, call the candidates, get the interest check done, then actually it actually go to the candidate scheduling interview with the candidates. So that the whole process. Then we are actually brought into technology like your online assessment or your video interviews, that is in panel, so that the candidate can actually take interviews anywhere, need not to actually visit your facility, need not to come to a facility where you are actually having your walk-ins. So they can actually take interviews from anywhere, and then it's moved to the next round of actually where a interaction that happen, which is more on technical interaction with the panelist. That actually happen through video, and then the HR assessment. That the whole process has been automated using AI and SPAN. And then we are seeing a huge, there is a productivity, definitely there is a productivity improvement, and we are seeing our joining per recruiter, which was running at about 4.5 per month, it has increased to 6.5 in a span of 1 year. So that technology can actually bring in. So what it actually does, it's free of the recruiter to do your reneg management. Today, 2 years back, our reneg, that means when I actually make an offer to join, it was 27%. That means the offer I'm making to the people joining, I'm losing 27 people in between. And that is a huge effort. And then how I can actually strategize. So the whole strategy of a recruiter is moving from the transaction of doing interest check, scheduling interview, or making panel availability, moving towards actually reneg management. So which is a pure cost saving, because you are actually reducing your recruitment cost and you are not losing up people. What commitment you are giving to the business, and that these people will be joining, you are making sure that these people are actually joining on the dates. You are not actually losing out candidate in between. So that's how the whole AI and smart being used. This is one of the examples that is actually being practiced in industry. And then with that, I think you guys are actually know more than us. I just actually talk about some practical aspect of it. And definitely, it's not actually taking away job. It is actually freeing up your bandwidth from the transactional activities to do strategic job. So that is where the whole HR, if you look at the HR role, it is actually moving. The way it is moving, like your economy or the workforce. In the workforce, when we say related to software industry, the skills are actually changing. So you have to keep updated yourself with the skill. Similarly, it actually implies to HR. You need to actually keep updated yourself, make sure that you are relevant, and then looking towards the trend or future that HR is moving, and you needs to be aligned with business. No doubt about it. You need to be aligned with business. Whatever people practice you do, it has to be aligned with business. So that's my experience says. And a small example I'll give you, like most of the companies today, they run their HR services as a separate arm. And most of these HR services is what? Payroll queries, your employee queries on benefits, or some other stuff which is actually related to employee queries. And then some 3 years back, when I actually looked at one of the HR service center manager, I was talking to him in the recent time, and when I said that, what is your team size? I know that earlier our HR service center used to have 500 people. So now it has been reduced, that I know. But I said that, what is your team size? He said that my team size, I'm actually managing 4 people with 10 bots. So that is my team size. That is the language they're talking about. So the bots, the RPA coming in, which is primarily a output of AI and SMAC, which is actually automating the whole process. And then that is where you know to actually think about it. So whether I'm moving towards a transactional activities or actually moving towards a strategic activities, learning the transactional activities is essential because that actually give you the HR aspect of it. But at the end of the day, you know, to actually align with business. With that, thank you. And then I'll actually request next panelist to talk about it. I took up more than allotted time. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, second perspective.
Good morning. Good morning, guys. I think it's morning still. You can be a bit more energetic than this. Can you? Good morning? Good morning. Slightly better. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure. I think these are those interactions where I think we learn a lot. And I think I usually use this for a lot of my learning because over a period of time you start thinking that you have some stuff, you know, in your head, and then you realize it's absolutely getting obsolete. So you need fresh ideas, and fresh ideas come from young people, and I'm here for those ideas. So please be interactive, ask us questions. I think that's more important than anything else. I'm asked to speak about 2 things. One, my own career path, so that I you know, give you a sense of how I've progressed so far, and probably my views on the topic. Right? I'll try and cover it in maybe 5 minutes quickly. My name is Harish Sharma, so you may think I'm from the North India. I'm a Sharma from South India, right? That's the starting of my contradictions. By education, I'm a mechanical engineer, but didn't do anything in mechanical apart from studying the previous night of the exam. I joined as a software engineer. And my corporate life started as a software engineer. I then later moved on in IT in terms of doing various roles. Maybe after 7-8 years, I realized that I'll need to do something different, and I did something in projects. So managing projects, managing portfolio of projects. After that, I moved to a different company managing IT entirely. That included all things that IT does. After 3 years, my MD said, Harish, why don't you take up HR? So then I was thinking. So a couple of my peers said, okay, what are you trying to do? So I said, okay, maybe, no. My passion is to try and learn something new, right? So I thought this is something that I need to figure out myself, and got in. And probably in my HR team, I was the most, the least experienced HR person. And probably here also, I think I'm probably the most, the least experienced HR person here. But probably the theme helps me. Theme is about technology and how technology is changing things in the HR practice arena. So moving into the topic itself, AI and SMAC, right? Artificial intelligence, we are all intelligent, we think, right? So we are also building something which is artificially intelligent. So that means it can actually do things that what we are trying to do by ourselves, something else can do. A technology is going to be doing that. We call it robots, chatbots, bots, whatever you're going to use it as a terminology. So that basically means that most of the things that we are trying to do operationally in various roles in an organization or in our own lives, right? There will be some assistant, which is a digital assistant, which will do it for you, right? So that means it's actually a good thing and a thing that you need to be aware of for 2 reasons. One, see all the mundane things that you need to do, like documentation, writing down a few things, this, that, like of 8 hours of your working life, maybe 6 hours you're spending in these kind of mundane things, absolutely learning nothing, right? Now you got something which will do it for you. You can spend your 8 hours doing something more creative, more productive, and something that adds to the organization. That's a good thing, right? Second, other side of it is, so look, we learn in these esteemed organizations, we learn by doing, we get some experience, but what we think after a period is that, look, I know something, and that's the time where your learning stops. If you are getting to that stage whenever you're in your life, then it's a risky period for you, because things are changing, and things have always been changing. It's just the pace of change is going to, it's accelerating year on year. So you have to become a person who is always constantly trying to learn, right? Upskill themselves, yourself, so that you are able to figure out how you can contribute either to you, yourself, to your family, to your society, to the organization that you are in. If that mindset you're able to build, then you're going to have a wonderful time in years to come. SMAC, right? SMAC. See, this is actually, it's actually probably in our own lives. It has changed our lives, the way we lead our lives. When I started my career, when you are in a meeting, right? See, whenever you're in meetings, half of the time people are uninterested, right? They're not listening to you. Hopefully you guys are listening to me, right? Yes? Okay, thank you. So they would be looking here, there, and stuff like that. But now there is some consistency. Everybody is looking at their mobile phone, right? So you never know. They may be checking their email, so you can't ask them as well. So you just be respectful of them. What it has done is it has changed the way we interact, the way we communicate, the way we collaborate. It's completely changed. And you see that it is changing every few years. Maybe you're probably graduating in a year or so, and you probably will have people 5 years down the line coming up. And you always thought that you are this new generation, and you will find that the generation shift has already happened, right? You probably are digital native people. Probably they will be a level deeper than that. So they become, they grow with these technologies, and they become native of that technology, and their lives will revolve around that. So when you are looking at this, look at your own life, how things are changing. Then look at how this applies when you're working in an organization. So if you are becoming HR professional, my view probably is that you have to look at 3 levels. One is at the organization, when you call it as people, right? The employees who form that organization. Their expectations are changing because of these technologies, because their life has changed. So when they come into a corporate world, they'll expect the same change to be there, same type of interactions to be there. For example, you are very much socially active, may not be so much physically, but virtually, right? You are there everywhere in Facebook, LinkedIn. I know whenever I go and meet new people, they would have seen my profile already in the LinkedIn, and they know what I have done already. So nothing needs to be asked, right? So your interactions become limited to what you actually want to know. But virtually, you are interacting a lot more. You have virtual friends. You have virtual families also maybe now. So your employees would expect that, right? So how do you build your policies, your processes, so that they are able to do that? Work together, collaborate together in an organization, right? So something like a digital workplace. We're just starting a project, we call it digital workplace, so that we give them this platform so that they can work the way they know how to work, right? Number 2 is business. Right? Every organization is there to serve a purpose, and their business is serving their purpose. We call it vision, mission, whatever it is. As a HR, you need to be aligned entirely to that, and then build strategies towards people so that this can be enabled as a HR. HR is an enablement function, right? You will have to ensure this enablement happens through HR, so you have to align to that. This never changes. This is the golden rule of HR, right? Number 3 is you as a HR practitioner, how are you going to look at it? Right? How are you going to make things happen for you? Number 1, this is a great time, use these technologies to kind of get away with what you call operational activities to be done by technology, and focus towards your core area of looking at your people and looking at your business, right? So that through people you're able to ensure the business meets its objectives, right? These are 3 things that I thought we should look at, and I just want to keep it short. I hope I'm not gone beyond my time. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to see you all and interact with you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So, our last presenter before we go to the question and answers. He's got his timer.
5 minutes, right? Okay, I'll try to take 5 minutes. I use my mobile phone for taking notes, so I am in person here. I use mobile phone for taking my notes and not to do my mails, right? Good. Morning, everyone. It's always a great pleasure to be back to XIM. I studied here 20 years back, but every time I come, I feel more younger. And it's also nice to see, speaking to so many people, I also learn quite a lot from you. So what I'll do now is I'll speak about my career, and then I'll speak about what's happening in HR, how are we leveraging SMAC AI, right? So my career, I'm a computer science engineer from BITS Pilani, worked for 1 year, 1.5 years as a software engineer. Asked my HR department quite a lot of questions. In fact, when I told my HR head that I was leaving to do HR, he literally fell down because I was causing him so much trouble when I was a software engineer, asking him many questions which he had no answers to. I did 2 years of HR here. I think even here I was asking too many questions. I was questioning everything. So being inquisitive is one thing which really helps. After this, I joined a company called Aditi Technologies. I joined, and within a year, they sent me to the US because the HR head in US, she was unwell, and I had to be there for a year. I was based in Seattle, and I think that's when the most important thing happened. I was reading a book at Barnes & Nobles. It's a huge, I don't know how many of you know what Barnes & Nobles is. It's a huge bookstore with physical books. And then someone came and gave me a small coupon for $10 saying that something new has come up, why don't you try it, right? And that was Amazon. Amazon was setting up in Seattle, right? So that's when I realized if you don't disrupt yourself, and Barnes & Noble was a great, huge organization, right? No one would have expected within the next 5 years it would cease to exist because of Amazon. So technology is clearly disrupting things in a manner which you really don't know how it's happening. And after that, I joined a company called Cambridge Technology Partners. It was a boutique IT firm. I joined, and within a month, it was taken over by an organization called Novel Netware. Again, many of you would not know Novel Netware. They were much before Cisco, everything came. They were supposed to be the experts in networking, netware. And there what happened was CTP was a much smaller entity. And we had CEO of CTP was an individual called Jack Messman. Due to a lot of boardroom politics, he ended up being as the CEO of the larger entity when both organizations merged, and everyone were feeling bad for the outgoing CEO of Novel, and everyone said he's a really nice guy. It's unfortunate that he's not politically savvy. He had to go out. And this person was out. He was without a job, and at that point of time, there were two young people who were starting something new. They wanted someone to mentor them, and that's how Eric Schmidt became the CEO of Google. So sometimes you think in life, there are something, it's the end of things. Like for Eric Schmidt, he lost his job. But then actually, it was the beginning of something much greater, much bigger for him. Right? So this is something which I learned. Like what you think as an end is actually a beginning for something which is much greater. After that, I joined HP. There, HP, the most important thing which stuck with me was we were moving quite a lot of work from US and other locations to India. And then there was one person who was actually working on the last day. And he was still working, and his job was going off. He knew very well the job will not exist the next day. And we were very curious. So we went and asked him, what is that? You know your job is going off. Why are you still working like this? He said that, no, I still remember what the organization has done for me. And even on my last day, I'll be faithful to the organization. So that's, if you are really good to employees, they will be good to you. Always assume, most of the times in HR, we make policies, processes, assuming the worst. Somewhere we need to start looking at things differently and assume employees are good. And you make processes and policies which enable them. After that, I joined ANZ Bank for 5 years, working across cultures. That's when I realized people might be very different culturally. At the end of the day, everyone follows the same Maslow's hierarchy of needs. As long as you identify which part they are in and address it, that's the way you get work done. It has nothing to do with culture, nothing to do with any other thing. It's individual. Then I spent 7 years in Accenture after that, and Accenture was a great experience. I got access to quite a lot of research in the field of HR, and really, it's 6-7 years back, they were speaking about hyper-personalization, they were speaking about SMAC was something which Accenture was speaking in 2011, when it actually started happening in 2014, right? So that was an organization which was really in the forefront of thinking much ahead. And for the last 1.5 years, I am at Societe Generale. It's a French bank. And what Societe Generale offers me is opportunity to actually put everything into action, whatever I learned, right? So that's been my career so far. Now, coming to how most of them spoke about how AI, SMAC are all enablers, right? I'll give you some examples of how we use it in our day-to-day life. Coming to social, right? Today, most of the hiring, if you look at it, is focused towards hiring from LinkedIn and other media. The traditional route of going through recruiters is slowly going away. People put up their profiles on LinkedIn and everyone is hiring through LinkedIn, everything. And in fact, the best way to find out what people in your organization are speaking about you is trying to find out what they are speaking in social media. So when I was at Accenture, I used to, for any policy changes, everything I used to go to a Facebook site called Accenture Confessions, which was run by employees where they used to put in their feedback. And that was giving me much more feedback than actually doing employee surveys, everything. And the other one is also, today, anything you say, anything you do in an organization, the first thing people put up is on either social media or they put it on Glassdoor. So if you want to gauge how an organization is, everyone goes to Glassdoor first. So this means that you need to be very cognizant of whatever you think is going to stay within the organization is not going to stay within the organization. So the boundaries between the organization and the external world is going away because everything is social. So from a HR perspective, we've got to be really clear and we've got to be really transparent with employees. The minute if you don't know it, it will be out in the open, right? So transparency, and we need to be very sure of what we are doing. So that's the learning for us as far as social is concerned for HR professionals. In terms of mobile, mobile is a very interesting thing because today people travel quite a lot. So there's, at least in Bangalore, there's quite a lot of time which people waste in travel. So how do you leverage that? You try to put all your learning, everything mobile. So from a HR perspective, you need to start looking at not just putting websites, you need to change everything to be mobile enabled. Your processes, your learning, everything should be mobile enabled. And also if you look at least in Societe Generale for us, mobile is very important because we are growing in Africa. And Africa is a place where we didn't have the traditional progression of going from your standard desktops to everything. They made a leapfrog to mobile. And it's banking employees who are on the field. So for me, everything has to be done on mobile to them. So mobile as a delivery medium for HR is becoming quite important. Analytics, HR has extremely lot of data. We have access to quite a lot of data and we really are not making much use of it. The only area where we are looking at, we are making use of analytics in most of the organizations could be in finding out how effective our recruitment is, or identifying areas where you could try to predict when an employee could leave the organization, right? But even these models are not really learning models. Most of the models which I have come across are very static models, which says that, for example, if I am going to predict how an employee is going to leave an organization, I can find out XYZ criteria is there, so this person has a higher probability of leaving the organization, and you go and engage with that individual. The next year you run the same thing without building a feedback loop into it. It just happens that it shows that your prediction was wrong because the person did not leave the organization. But actually because of that, you had gone and spoken to the person and made the person stay in the organization, right? So you need to build some sort of a learning into whatever analytics work which you are doing. And there's quite a lot of other data also which we really are not using, right? In terms of, can I find out what really makes a person successful, right? What is the environment a person can work in based on the huge amount of data? Can I find out what can make the person successful? This is one area where we can really use analytics here. And cloud has really revolutionized work per se. Right? In the past, you need to come to office to work. But today, with most of the things being on the cloud, you can access anything, anywhere. Especially in terms of enabling gender diversity and providing flexibility to employees. This is one area where it has really, really helped because many times we used to find in the past a person goes on maternity leave and when she comes back, it takes time for the person to integrate with the organization. But now people can start working from home and it also eases them to come back. And not just maternity leave. It could be also, I have cases in my team where I have team members who stay in Bangalore, none of their parents are around, and if the wife is pregnant, I usually let my team members work from home. Right? So these are things which cloud helps. We do, in being in HR, we always feel that our data is very sacrosanct. We need to be extra careful about data. Yes, we need to be there, and with a lot of countries coming up with their own data privacy rules, we need to be really careful about how we put things on cloud, not on what we put on cloud, because that's, you don't have an option today. You need to put everything on cloud, and that's the way the future is going. It's all about what sort of security and what sort of security and algorithms to prevent data being hacked is what you should be focusing on. So this is the SMAC part of it. On AI, now we have started using bots in almost every part of, yeah, I'm just finishing it. Now we have started using bots in almost every area of HR. But one thing about AI is that at the end of the day, it's there to help HR. It does not replace HR. HR or any other role will continue to exist, but the way we do that role will be significantly different, given that AI is a very strong tool for us to use. Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, thank you all of you to help us set the stage in a sense of with your personal views into it, which was very important. So now, young people, we are turning to you to keep this event as lively as possible. So, are we ready for question one? You remember the few rules? Introduce yourself, brief question, no statement. Okay. Thank you for being the brave one who takes the first question.
Hi, respected panelists. My name is Nitish Kumar. I'm from MBA HRM first year. And my question is to Magesh. You just pointed out that there is one area, like how a person can be successful, we can work on that, like it's a major part. So can you brief us about that, like how we can proceed in that?
Honestly, I don't know the answer. That's one area which we really need to work on, because is there any way by which we can use the data available to find out what is the condition in which a particular person can be successful? Right? This has been one of the questions for me always. With the huge amount of data which we have, is it in any ways possible? Right? You can look at maybe what made the person get a higher performance rating over a period of time. I haven't done work, I mean, we've done some sort of a work, but nothing really conclusive. And this is one area maybe which you guys could take as something to work on, right? If you really crack it, then I think that would make a big difference, because each one you will put that person in a sweet spot where he or she can do the best of their abilities. And at the end of the day, HR is to enable people to achieve their potential and be successful. If we can get that right using data analytics, that would be the best thing. I don't have an answer. I don't think anyone has done enough work to come out with an answer for that, but that's one area which would be really interesting for HR.
Just to add, see, when you actually look at the employee, so he or she start disengaging himself or herself before actually start looking at outside. So if you analyze the engagement pattern of that employee, so as you say that, I think essentially use that predictive model. So as us, so we actually mine the data related to the engagement of the employee, how many SSD tickets they are actually raising, their engagement to the or social platform within the organization, their activities outside the organization and social sites. If you actually mine all these data, this will actually give you some indication of actually the employee behavior. But as I said, that is not accurate. It will actually give to 60 to 70% of accuracy. You can actually figure it out. These are the employee. Then you have to actually engage. When you engage, you will figure more deeper into figure it out that whether the employee is actually really looking out, or there are some aspect of the organization he or she is not happy about, and then you can actually take a course correction out of that. But that's how actually help. I mean, look at internal and outside data to actually figure it out. That is a lot of predictive analysis that actually been done, mining the data.
Thank you.
Another comment or we go?
Just to add to it, look, analytics is going to help if you are capturing all the data. Especially in this type of topics, it's very difficult to get the data, and the accuracy of data is always questionable. So some elements, especially in HR, and the human touch doesn't go. So you will have to have that as a last mile for you to ensure that you are not actually taking the wrong decisions or approaching it in a wrong way. So just be careful about that. Don't entirely rely on it. It's not there yet, as you know, the panelists have already said. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. So we switch to question 2. Here. Okay.
Good morning to all my respected, very good morning to all my respected panelists. So I have one question to Antaryami sir. To Antaryami sir, actually, like it had been spoken, like a lot of redundant work and daily transaction activities are getting replaced by AI and SMAC. So the thing is that in a particular organization, in a particular department which is more associated with redundant works and daily transactions, there can be people who are a bit conventional and not inclined towards technological changes and upgradation. So being an HR, how can we, as a future HR, can enable them and make them more aligned and motivate them towards the technological changes and upgradations?
Okay, the automation is now a necessity. So every organization is looking at cost. So, and our automation, we all know, it's actually is more cost efficient than the manual work we do. So as a HR, what I'm saying that today, if you look at HR, now HR carries a KRA which is related to upskilling and redeployment of people. Okay. So you need to figure it out that in the organization, the automation changes that bringing into a set of people to find out what skill we should actually upgrade them and move them to a productive deployment. So that is where the HR plays a very significant role to motivate employee to make sure there is a course curriculum available to upgrade themselves, whether inside or outside, that's immaterial, but at least there is a course material available to actually upgrade them, the trainings are available, and then more importantly, the deployment and acceptability of those employees to the newer function or newer unit is very essential. And I see a very significant role of HR in that transition, employee moving from one role to the other. Hence we should be cognizant about the fact that this is happening and this will going to happen. The roles will be going to change. The skills will be going to change. How we can actually make sure we are actually upgrading the skill of employees to make sure they are actually rightfully deployed or productively deployed.
Harish, would you?
I just want to give you an example. See, we have a role. It's just a very junior role in terms of its skill sets that is required. But for that, I have somebody who is in their 50s. And also somebody who is in their 20s. So that gives you a range, right? Now, if you want to automate and you want someone to do a lot more complex technology-driven processes, a person who is in 50s may not possess either the attitude towards that nor the skills towards that. So you will have to find out, especially, now here you have to align to the organization. For example, Toyota, where I am come from, here it's basically the way we see it is that you are an employee for life. So you are there, you are contributing to the organization. Now it's for us, especially from a HR perspective, it is for us to actually figure out how you can enhance that contribution of that individual to the organization. So you have to figure out what their skills are, what their motivations are. So then give them roles which actually they can contribute on. At the same time, you'll have to train them that if they are looking at a career for a few more years, then they have to get some basic skills of technology. Otherwise, they cannot survive. So both these things that we have to do as a HR.
Just to rephrase your question, was your question more on how you can make employees adapt to these technology changes? Okay, so today you use technology everywhere. And I look at this in a different perspective. You use technology everywhere, right? So anything you want to do, you do it online. You go to Google, you use Ola, everything is done online, right? And so what makes you think employees would not want that similar experience within the organization itself, right? People are people are more than ready to use new technologies. It's just that we feel that people are not ready. People want the same sort of experience they have outside office to have it inside office also. If I can ask Siri to play a song which I like, why can't I ask a chatbot to tell me the number of days of leaves I have? That's the sort of employee expectation which you are having today. So everyone is aligning to technology. Getting employees to align to technology is not the difficult part. Getting HR to start using the technologies and trying to create a workplace which is not very different from what is outside work, that's the difficult part today.
Thank you. We had a question there, and then one at the back, I can see. Okay, can you? Okay. We don't forget you.
Good morning, panel. I am Mansi Chopra from MBHR second year. So I have a question to the entire panel. That it was just yesterday in HPR that I was reading that it's not about new technological interventions. Difficulty is not there. The difficulty is to implement a new cultural change in the organization. So I want your viewpoints that how can we make an impact on the organization culture to adapt technology?
I will take that question. It's a pretty interesting one. Like you rightly said, any amount of technology changes which we implement will really not bring any difference as long as the organization culture doesn't change, right? Personal example, we started out a chatbot for finding out employee engagement, right? It's the case the chatbot reaches out to each employee at predefined intervals which we can define and finds out how much the employee is engaged. And this initially my senior management felt this is not the right way to do because HR by nature is supposed to go and speak to employees. And why will employees actually speak to a chatbot? And this is a pretty, it's not just a Q&A chatbot. It works on sentiment analysis where depending upon your responses, it asks questions. It does a follow-up question, everything. It's pretty evolved as far as AI is concerned. But still, culturally, I had my leadership team coming and telling me, HR should sit with their people. HR should be on their floor. And HR should speak to employees on a daily basis. Let's just look at how feasible it is. I have a team of 20 HR business partners managing 8,000 people, around 400 person per HR business partner. And if the person has to be speaking to each and every employee, it's really going to be, the person will have time to do nothing else. So this is now, slowly now people are understanding that the way you look at HR also need to change culturally, right? It's, as long as you know which are the employees, you are engaged with the employees, and the engagement could be through anything. You know what's happening on the floor, you are engaged with employees, you get feedback from them, that's perfectly fine. It does not mean that you need people to sit with the employees or you need to be where exactly the employees are. Everything. So this took us some time for everyone to understand when they started seeing the results. When they started finding out HR is actually going and speaking to people who seem to be disengaged or people who want to talk or people who have some brilliant ideas, then they started realizing that the culture is now, let's not look at HR being everywhere on the ground, but as long as work gets done, it's perfectly fine. It's not just in HR, in any area, the first thing is technology will not help as long as the culture and our attitude towards technology doesn't change. And that's much more important. So when you as HR professionals are going and implementing any new change, technology or otherwise, first look at how it's going to, what is the change you want to see in the behavior and culture of the organization, and focus on that. Technology at the end of the day is just being, just going to be an enabler.
Good afternoon.
No, sorry.
I had a question. Good
Okay.
afternoon,
So
panel.
then after we have this young lady there who's been very patient. So after you, we take this question. Thank you. Go on, please.
Okay. Good afternoon, panel. My name is Neha Rautrai. I'm from second year MBA HRM. So my question is for the whole panel. So with SMAC driving the next generation of technological trends, which organization, according to you, is pioneering in increasing productivity using SMAC? And how should us as HR students understand and comprehend the business models to our advantage?
If your question is examples of organization,
Yes.
my suggestion would be to look at any organization which is actually global in nature. Any organization, whether it's in any industry. If you can take Amazon, it's a fantastic example. Google is a fantastic example. Toyota is a fantastic example. All of them are trying to evolve into a newer dimension of how to engage their employees to reach their business goals as our organizational goals. Two things are happening is that each organization is looking at their own business getting disrupted. If I take my own case, which is Toyota, Toyota is a vehicle manufacturer, auto manufacturer, but Toyota believes and understands that if they don't change right now, they will not exist in the next 5 to 10 years, because automobile industry is getting disrupted and we don't know who is our next competitor, because it could be Apple, it could be Google, we don't know. So that means I have to evolve. That means I have to change the way I'm doing right now, right from my mindset as an organization. What is organization? Just people, right? So our HR job would be to actually change those mindsets. Now, any of these organizations, if you look at it, I think there'll be a great example for you. They start from the vision, they start from the policies, and they actually have two methods. One is a top-down force method, other one is a bottom-up, where they will try and figure out, how do you engage people and make them change the way they do things and how they adopt the new way of doing things.
Thank you.
I think like we rightly said, it's the business models are changing. We are a French bank and we are not now, what's worrying us is not whether a Credit Agricole or a BNP Paribas is going to take us over. What's worrying for us is whether Google is going to disrupt the way we are working. We are now asking fundamental questions. Banking traditionally is someone going to a branch and interacting with someone at the other side of the counter. You're asking, do we need branches at all? Right? If everything can be done online, do we need branches? That's the business part of it. Now, coming to the HR part of it, if I don't need branches, what am I going to do with all these people who are working in my branches? How do I get different roles for them? Or how will their role evolve? So these are the sort of questions which people are asking now. It's your competitor or someone who's going to disrupt you is no longer going to be from the same industry as you are. It could be someone who's totally different. For all you know, Uber is now delivering food. Right? So Uber could be the one which will disrupt the entire hospitality industry. You never know. So you need to broaden your horizon when you're looking at who could be your potential disruptors.
Thank you. Hope you won't be taken over too soon because you're my bank in France. Or let me know before.
We'll give you a very different banking experience.
Okay, so let's take this question. Yes. Where's the... Okay. Thank you.
Good morning all. I am Priyanka Sahu, first year. My question is to the whole panel. As we all know that innovation and creativity is something which is done by the human. So then why is there's a depiction that or analysis that AI and SMAC are going to have a control on the whole HR practices?
It is not. If you look at AI, let's translate it to machine learning. If you look at the logic behind the machine learning, who invented those logic? It is only human. So if I look at, let's say example in an HR space, if I look at a JD and matching to a JD to the profiles available, somebody has to actually, through a logic saying that how to match this two and to get a right fit. So the whole logic, if you look at that, it is all coming from human only. So only what we are saying is basically come out of the transactional roles which can be automated and which benefited, because end of the day, if you are productive, you are quick to quick in responding to the employee, that actually help as an HR professional. So your whole focus should actually move from the transactional to more strategic, more aligned to business. At the same time, do more on customer employee experience, which is actually the bring in wow factor. But today, as Mahesh said that their HR partner to employee ratio is 1:400. We run at 1:600. How a HR person will actually manage 600 employees? And you need to bring idea and innovate yourself to figure it out how you will keep engaged with each employee. So that only the human being can actually think about how to engage. Then you enable through technology. That is the second aspect. Hence, I don't see that it will actually take away a job, or it is more actually how you using technology to make to be more relevant and engage with the employees and bring in more employee experience aspect of it so that they are engaged.
I think for everything I seem to have a point of view, unfortunately. I'm sorry for that. So here, like he rightfully said, right? It's all about making your job better, making you make more informed decisions. That's what SMAC, AI, everything is going to do. It's not going to take away your job, but it will change the way your job is. You might be spending quite a lot of time in identifying who are the people who might resign, right? So in the past, you would have done a lot of analysis. Now the machine does it for you and gives you this is the trend, this is the pattern, everything which is happening, and then based on that, you need to start working on the next steps. So the difficult work of identifying patterns, trends, everything is done by the machine. But then on how to work on it, everything, that still has to be done by the human. And even teaching the machine on how to identify things needs to be done by humans, right? So at the end of the day, the human gives the input, the machine does something, it gives you the output, you need to work on that output. That's putting it very simply. So the other thing which you also need to notice is the input which you are giving is biased, right? So you will end up, the output will also be biased. For example, for recruitment, if you look at it, right? One of the ways you are trying to see what is the best candidate I can get, right? You have certain algorithms that say this person is the best candidate and you start hiring. Based on that algorithm, you make hiring. At the end of what happens to diversity in the organization? You will end up hiring people of the same profile, everything, right? So AI is a great tool, but always you need to have the human intelligence to use it.
I just want to add, see your impact, what you're saying is a bit of anxiety, right? Why you think it's all about humans, right? They innovate, they create. Then why we are saying these technologies are taking over? So keep in mind, in your own lives, you realize technology has already taken over in a way that the way you do things have changed, right? It has disrupted the way you live. It disrupted the way you work. That is what is happening in organizations as well. Only thing HR has to do is understand them and adapt and evolve. They are actually enablers. They are not going to change the key role of HR in an organization. That continues to. In fact, it becomes more acute with these technologies.
Thank you. Very good morning to respected panel. My name is Kedarnath Thakur. I am from MBHRM, first year. My question is to Mr. Antayami Patra. As you said, sir, as you pointed out, कि AI or machine learning, it enables us to perform efficiently with more strategic manner, which definitely I agree with. But as we all know that these softwares, AI-enabled softwares or EWAS, they are more or like they are based upon more or like analytic approach. So my question is that actually with this conditional that AI has, when we want to pursue any conventional intelligence like creativity, innovations, that is much needed. So are not this the efficiency of this AI or software are questionable?
See, any creativity, you need to find out, identify the area. So in a HR space, this identification of an area, how will actually identify? Either it is actually coming from a discussion, coming from an engagement, or it is itself in your area, you are actually creating some idea which is actually help that function or a unit. So data actually helps. Data helps in terms of identifying the problematic area, then the creativity, or you want to bring in anything into to solve that problem area or address that problem area, will actually come. So data interpretation and throw you some of the area where that may be, is to look at your attrition, maybe one of the topic in HR, and or the reverse way retention. So if you look at the data, what my data says, if it is actually increasing in pockets, okay. So to find out what is the root cause of that attrition or root cause of or identifying the area where it is happening, still you need the data. So the data will only throw up the area or give you an indication it is happening there or there, and then from there you can actually take it up. That is what I'm saying. So being a HR partner to employee ratio is increasing, so you are dependent on data. So unless the data, you interpret the data rightly or you structure your data correctly, otherwise it will always a garbage in and garbage out. It will not give you anything if the data is not correct. But that's where you dependent on data to actually say something, then from there you take it onwards. That is what my experience says. And the whole HR analytics that I'm running is again, it actually some pocket we see that the data accuracy is not there, but still we find out a way how to actually interpret and say that what the data says and how to read the data. That is what the analytics skills that will actually you build it in the HR practice. So that's what I.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. So one question there.
Good afternoon, panel. This is Jagjit from HRM second year. So I have a question that HR is all about qualitative data. Okay. So what are the real-time difficulties that the organization face to convert into quantitative data for analytics, and how much accurate the data we can get?
That's three questions
Not
in
always,
one.
it is not always qualitative. Let me say that if you are actually analyzing attrition and we are looking at age group. So age is actually, again, is a quantitative data. So you always see to translate, suppose I am talking about a demography area or age group or maybe diversity. So these are all are actually, you can translate it to a quantitative area to make sure that the data actually giving you a indicative in quantitative manner. So today, the qualitative aspect of it is more towards actually understanding the behavioral aspect of the employee, rather than actually, if you look at which is more quantified, and then you capture the data in the quantified manner. If you look at, suppose I'm looking at a place where the attrition is high, I want to actually look at the guy who is actually living what distance from my office. These are all quantitative data. So again, those data you need to actually make sure that you are translating the qualitative data to a quantitative data pattern and capture at the source, make sure that it is actually giving you a, when you are actually analyzing it, it is giving you a quantitative output rather than a qualitative output, which is actually interpreting a qualitative output or getting into an action plan is a little difficult than a quantitative data. That is what my point of view, unless you want to actually say something beyond that.
Actually, it is possible to quantify qualitative data as long as you have the definitions which are understood in the right manner by everyone. For example, if I want to quantify my engagement level, right? I say my engagement level is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. As long as you know what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are, you have clear definition of if my engagement level is at 1, this is what I'm doing, 2, this is what it is, and everyone around the organization also has the same understanding, then it's possible to quantify. And so anything which is qualitative, you need to get the definitions correct and definitions understood in the same manner as by everyone. Then you can qualify with anything which is qualitative. You can quantify anything which is qualitative.
I just want to add, I just give an example. He took up attrition, right? You look at data, see data, where are you getting data from? You're getting from what your employees would have given you, maybe as part of your exit, right? And you realize most of the time, employees do not give what they actually are thinking. So your data, which is quantitative in nature now, and a bit of the qualitativeness of that is not accurate. So what do you do with that? You have the data, you kind of understand and analyze, and then come out with some reasoning. We did that, and we got a reason X. Then we got a bit of a doubt, and then we said, okay, we'll do a little bit of a different way of capturing this data. So we went with people who have this psychological way of answering and questioning these people as a third party. And they started asking. It's quite qualitative in terms of their conversation. And then they captured that qualitative conversation into a quantitative data points. And then they actually reported back. And then we realized it was not X at all. It was something else. It was Y. So you will have to play around with these two things. And in HR, you need this last mile of human touch. Otherwise, your data accuracy, even if you have huge amount of data, you may lead to a wrong conclusion. That's one thing you have to be very careful about.
Thank you. One question at the back.
Good morning, panel. I'm Siddhant Kumar from MBA second year. My question is that technology has not only become more powerful but also more portable. More and more companies are implementing policies like bring your own device, and a lot of work can be done through mobile phones also now. So do you see this as the beginning of the end of the conventional workspace?
I'll take that. Because I come from an organization which is a manufacturing organization, and usually manufacturing organizations are probably at the lower level of adaptation towards this. I see the challenge that I'm facing in my organization. The culture of the organization is from manufacturing background. I'm in a services industry of financial services. So when I get people from outside, it's very difficult for them to figure out why some things happen in a way in Toyota Financial Services, because they come from services background, where it's so easy to use technology for doing simple things, whereas in a manufacturing unit, it's different. It's much more structured, much more rigid. Now, how do you marry these two, and how you actually ensure that you move on and create an environment where both these things can coexist? That's where biggest challenge comes. Now, most of the time, it's your organization willing to actually change. Because most of the leaders would be in their 50s, 40s, and if they are not able to connect to the people who are coming into the organization in 20s, there's a challenge. So HR should play that bridge. We basically built a IT project. That is basically creating some technology to help collaborate and communicate for employees among themselves. But what we did was we made it as a project which is called Digital Workplace, and it's now led by HR, so that employees are actually able to use it and actually become a much more productive and a much more contributing employee. Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of workplace itself changing, it's again, the organization culture also plays a big part of it. There are certain organizations which would want people to get together, either virtually or physically, to get work done. And there are certain organizations which are fine as long as work gets done wherever you are. Like when I was in Accenture, it's a very distributed organization. As a concept, Accenture does not have a concept of a head office itself. So they had people all across the organization. CEO was in one place, CFO, CTO, each one is in a different place. And working virtual was a given thing. So I've worked for 3-4 years with people whom I have never seen face to face. But that's the way of working as far as the organization was concerned. In SocGen, it's a traditional organization which is moving towards becoming much more digital, where we are experimenting with things on how it would work for people to change, like working from home. So it's also like someone said, it's the culture. So you need to believe that when people work from home, they work. And you need to start also measuring output in a very different manner. It's not the number of hours you work, but what you do at work. So it's not just about where you work from, it's also how you measure how people work. That also needs to change. And it's going to be really, that's one thing which you have said, where people work from. Extending it, you will also have different types of employees also coming in, right? So for me, one way is nowadays a lot of organizations are going towards crowdsourcing work. You give work to a set of people who are not even part of your organization. You do not even know what their background is, you just give the work and get the work done. That brings up a new set of workforce itself today. And how do you handle this? So your physical work structure is one, the way work is being done is also the second big challenge, and the third one is the concept of work itself. What is work? With AI coming in and this thing, so what do you exactly mean by work? And work itself is changing for everyone. So everything is changing, and there's no right or wrong way. It depends upon how mature you are as an organization and what is the culture of the organization.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, panel. This is Aishwarya Mishra from first year MBA HRM. When we talk about AI and SMAC, it involves a lot of capital to imbibe this into your organization, which is probably possible for, say, big players or somebody that has a global reach of employees. Would you suggest a mid-level organization or a startup to invest in AI and SMAC?
I'll take it. I'm an IT person. I can tell you this is not capital intensive anymore. You have technologies which are easy, and it is operational expense basically. You don't need to spend anything much upfront, and it will be a recurring cost for you on a monthly basis or a quarterly basis. So I would definitely recommend, if you are small, startup or a mid-sized organization, you have to use this technology. That's the only way you can survive. Otherwise, you'll create a huge cost structure for yourself. So if you're a startup or a mid-sized organization, this is the way for you to go. You have to use technology.
Just if I step in 1 minute, that's a fascinating idea that you switch the cost of investment to your employees, if you think of it. A bit with a smile, but bring your own device means that you switch the cost of investment to each of your employee. You have to. Okay.
If you're a small organization, you can't survive otherwise. You need to use Mac.
People work from home, they pay for their network connection.
I think one wonderful example of that is IBM. IBM in India has got lakhs of employees. Their office space doesn't cater for those employees. No, they use their own own home, that's their office. No need to pay for the office space, then their own connectivity, and they get to feel that they're working from home, as well as the organization doesn't need to spend so much about it. So.
Thank you. One question there. Okay, you've got.
Hello everyone, this is Shreshi Devan from MBA HRM, second year. My question is, chatbots are very extensively used in recruitments. So at times questions like if a person is suitable to the organization culture or a culture fit, so all it needs is a crafty answer to be chosen and selected. So how is chatbots and machine learning really helping to select the right candidate? Many a times maybe the right ones are left behind. So how do we overcome this?
So it is not always happen that way. If you look at the machine learning aspect of it, what it does is basically, it look at, I'm coming from a software industry, I can actually relate it to say that if I'm looking for a Java developer who has worked in a BFSI segment, so finance domain. So when the machine learning that actually look at the resumes or profiles, actually looks at the project he has actually. He's not only looking at the Java as a skill. It looks at the job performed by individual. It looks at the kind of project he has actually worked on. It goes into the customer base of where he has actually worked on. And it looks at your JD, what your JD says. So it brings on all this aspect to say that whether the candidate is suitable or not suitable. It's not only the chatbot aspect of it. It actually looks at many more aspects of the profile to say that it's suitable or not suitable. So that is one example I can actually say that is we are not actually losing out candidates. It's actually more towards how productively your recruitment engine is actually, otherwise I'll go on actually scanning a number of profiles to find a suitable job. is actually within a minute or second, it actually find out the suitable profile for you, and from there you can actually select. And more often what we are seeing today, even I actually employed that AI engine within our internal database to say that I've got set of people who are actually suitable for that job. So it actually look my internal database first before we go and actually hire somebody from outside. So it works. It's more to, initially it will actually throw up some result which is not matching, but more and more it actually learns the behavior of the hiring manager. Even it goes down to the hiring manager. If I'm a hiring manager and I'm recruiting for a project, it actually analyzes the behavior of that hiring manager, that when he is selecting a candidate, why he has actually selected the candidate. From there actually it starts the whole learning path, and then create, it will be more accurate over the years, over the time, and then throw up more accurate candidate for you. So it is basically how you build the logic and how it actually start learning based on the behavioral aspect of the hiring manager to figure out who is the best candidate for that job.
We use quite a lot of chatbots, so I can speak about that. So on recruitment, the chatbots do give you the list of candidates who are closely matching the potential. The final decision is still the human being who does it, right? So the way it actually learns to give better options is by finding out, look, these are the 3 choices I gave. This is the one which was selected, though. So this means that this is what the preference is. That's how it constantly learns. At the end of the day, the decision is still being made by a human. What chatbots help is to give you something which is closer to what you're looking for. Right? And sometimes you might even need to change the entire algorithm. Like I was saying, if it's throwing up similar sort of profiles every time, and I want to have a very diverse organization, I need to start going back and changing the algorithms itself. Still, these are just tools. They are not going to replace the final decision maker. That you need to understand. They will just refine the answers and make it much more accurate, closer to what you want. But the final decision of whether you're going to take it or not is still left to the individuals. It's similar to how Amazon throws up recommendations, right? You go, you buy a lot of things, and over a period of time when you log in itself, it says these based on your pattern of buying everything, it starts giving targeted ads. Chatbots also work on a similar logic. Based on how your hiring pattern, everything is, they start showing recommendations. So they don't make decisions, they just give recommendations.
Okay, we'll take two, thank you. We'll take 2 more questions to try and be on time, and don't blame the French people for being always late. So 2 more questions, at maximum 2, and then the wrap-up, gentlemen. Wrap-up takeaway.
Good afternoon to the respective dignitaries on the dais. I am Pratik Kumar Naik from MBA HRM first year. And my question is particular to the Mr. Harris sir. Like the Toyota culture is, basically I learned from Toyota book that they are based on the people principle. So is technology and AI is going to prevalent in the company. So it can take away the job of the people also. So how to, as we are HR, how to deal with that dilemma that they are going to take over the job, and what is the perception of people towards that? Means like how to change the perception.
So you heard of Toyota, right?
Yeah.
What is the culture of Toyota? You heard of that?
Yeah, it's like they accept people as their own, means the organization.
It's based on, it's been documented in 2001. It's called the Toyota way, right? You can Google it, right? There are 2 pillars to it. One is continuous improvement. That means there's always a better way of doing things. Second one is respect. So respect for people and teamwork. Now, and for an organization of Toyota, as I mentioned before, we were a car manufacturing and car selling organization. Now we have said that now car manufacturing and selling, if I continue to do, maybe I'm the best now, but if in the years to come, if I continue to just doing that, I'll not be existing, because there'll be somebody else who will come and disrupt and take away. So I had to become a mobility solutions provider. Mobility solutions and services. It's very different. Not the mobile you're talking of, it's like And on demand, you want to move from point A to point B, and that's mobility for you, right? Now, all types of mobility. Now, for an organization like Toyota, which is across 170, 180 countries of different nationality and fundamentally a Japanese company, to move from this to that, the culture remains as is. See, the core of an organization is its values, right? And that's the structure within which it will operate. And these values transcend time. It doesn't really look at, okay, if your business model has changed, because values is how you operate to achieve that result. Now for Toyota, that stays. So that is one great thing for any person who works in Toyota, that they'll be able to relate back to those values. And they'll be able to understand why such a change is being done. So that's number one. Number two, see, employee for life, more or less worldwide, Toyota actually has, and you will see my boss is a 32-year-old veteran from Toyota, right? Which is a Japanese gentleman. Now for him, there's actually nothing that goes beyond Toyota. Now if people of that kind has to change, then you need to enable them, upskill them, and then place them where they can contribute. So what Toyota basically would be looking at is what we need to do in the changed environment, what are the skills that are required for those, and then upskill your employees towards that. So employees, especially in Toyota, do not have this apprehension worldwide. What they would be apprehensive is of the business itself. So the change there is that we need to move a bit faster. So that is one cultural change we are trying to bring. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. So we take the final one. Sorry, we have two final ones. That's going to be a challenge. So, the gentleman first row, and then very briefly, if you can both make it brief, we can take two. But that's all.
Good afternoon, respected panelists. My question is, how can technologies like AI and SMSE be used to enhance the employee experience and employee engagement of especially blue-collar workers in the manufacturing industry?
Okay, I'll take that. See, that's very challenging. But the good thing is, especially in countries like India, even blue-collared employees have their mobile phones. See, I was in the shop floor, working at the shop and the assembly line, and I had people using their mobiles in between, which is not actually allowed, but still they have unions and stuff like that. And now they interact like that. Now, if something happens in a line 1, everybody, maybe there are 5 lines, everybody knows about those stuff. So now the communication is very strong. So if you use those things which they are using in their daily lives, they get connected. So I was talking about a project called Digital Workplace. It is that kind of a project which helps people to use things or tools or technology that they are familiar with in their life, in their normal life, and use that. That's probably a way of, and especially with blue-collar people.
Thank you. So, the very final question.
Actually,
Sorry. Oops.
A very good afternoon to all. I am Alka Srivastav from HRM first year, and my question is directed to the entire panel. As it was mentioned, how all of you have worked across different organizations, and every organization has a different culture. So how AI and HR can be leveraged to transition an employee who has worked in a previous organization into the culture of the other organization which he enters?
I'll take my own example. I come from a bank which is an Australian bank, and then moved to Toyota, which is a Japanese organization and has a manufacturing background. And I come from IT and a banking background. So it's like a cultural shock, right? Now, how can you use these technologies? See, what happens is when you enter into an organization which is very different from your previous organization, first is you get a cultural shock. You are not able to relate why things are being done in a particular way. If you are able to use this technology well, then you can actually make them, oriented towards that even before they join you, right? Earlier we used to have something called a buddy system, right, where somebody will be with them to help them navigate the initial days. You can use technology to become that assistant. Even before they join, they know how things happen. And once they come in, you can actually use technology so that you have audio, visual, and interactive material that they can go through by themselves at their own pace. And you create a digital workplace environment where they can interact with people and find out people who are in similar situations. Form groups, figure out things for themselves, take mentors, and then go ahead. We can definitely use this technology. It's very, very useful.
On employee experience side of it, so if you actually transition a candidate to an employee, that the whole onboarding process, if you look at, to make sure, there's a company that the employee ID creation asset like a laptop or a desktop allocation or a desk space allocation, or you should be knowing your RM. So these are the basic things, the JD, the project where I will be working. If you actually make more information giving to the candidate, will be more comfortable in terms of actually walking in, and he knows that where to sit, he knows, or he or she knows that who is my reporting manager, what project I need to work on, what kind of work I will be doing, and whom to actually contact in the HR opportunity, or in terms of your body program that actually most of the organizations actually employ. And that actually helps. Then you are connected with your body. So for any issue or any query, you can actually reach out to the person, and he or she can actually guide you to where to actually seek for those information. If we actually do it, and that actually technology helps, and that actually bridges the gap, bringing somebody outside to your organization, and that is a smooth transition that actually happens. So that's where the technology helps.
When you have the microphone, would you start your wrap-up takeaway?
I think this is very interesting interaction session. I think there are very questions which is actually help us also to think about. It is not only actually what we are actually practice in our HR function or give insight what the industry is actually doing, but it is more to actually take question from you to think about how the young entrepreneur like you actually, or entrepreneurs like you actually think about, and how, and then the queries about adoption or implementation of technology that actually helps us, and then we'll also start thinking about the people in our organization, what will be their reaction when we are actually taking any technology, new technology, and implementing it, and then that helps. And this is such interaction. I love such interaction, and I've been to many of the colleges. We talk about specifically on HR technology and HR analytics, and then and I like this interaction, and this helps two-way, both to the students as well as us as a practitioner. Thank you.
Thank you.
For me, I think three big takeaways. One, a lot of learning. I realize most of us have similar challenges. So I think my co-panelist, bundle of knowledge, bundle of experience. So I think, and through the questions that you asked, a lot of learning. So something that brings me ideas of how to implement this, whether in my own life or in my work. That's number one. Number two, I think I've gone to many places where you have this discussion, panel discussion for an hour. 40 minutes is we talking, and 10 minutes is for Q&A. This was the opposite. And this probably, I think, is a fantastic format. And this is a big learning and takeaway for me itself, because if I'm going somewhere or I'm conducting something like this, I probably would prefer this. A lot more interactive sessions. Number three, fantastic questions. Fantastic questions. So I think it doesn't matter how technology don't disrupt. I think we have great leaders, future HR leaders here who are capable to manage this. Your quality of questions were fantastic. So I'm fairly assured that organizations are in great hands for the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
For me, I think like Harish said, it was more interesting to have questions rather than us generally talking. That's a refreshing change. On the questions itself, which all of you asked, my only thing is technology is there to help HR. HR jobs will not go away. So don't get really worried about the jobs going away. technology doesn't take away jobs, it just changes the context of jobs. For example, we had so many STD booths in India before, right? So there were a lot of people who had livelihood through their through these STD booths. And then the mobile revolution came. It's not that everyone who had STD booths were without a job, without food or anything. They picked up something else. They evolved, and that's how it's going to happen, everything. So it's a natural theory of evolution, process of evolution. So it's the jobs which will get changed, but the jobs will still be there. Technology, AI, everything is a great enabler. And what you should be looking at is how do you use it? And for using technology and AI, you don't need to be a computer science engineer or a data scientist. You are already using this in your day-to-day life, right? You use Google, anything you do outside. Try to see how you can implement that in the workplace itself. So that's all, it's really simple. All you have to do is broaden your horizon of thinking. Try to see what works in one context, whether you can lift it and use it in a different context. I see a lot of you who have a lot of questions, who are bubbling with energy, but at the same time, I do see a sense of apprehension as to whether roles will exist, jobs will go away, nothing. Everything is changing and you are also changing, right? It's not that you are also remaining the same way it is and the world around you is changing. You are also changing, so you will be successful. It's just be relevant and always try to be relevant to what's happening around you, and you will succeed. So don't have this sort of apprehension that technology is going to change. It will disrupt, but you are ready for disruption. Yeah.
Okay, I would like to again thank the students for the good questions, but also the panelists for the good answers. Because we had good answers because we had good questions. That's how I would conclude. Thank you very much, all of you. Merci, as we say in French. So now, back to you.
I thank the panel and the moderator for the profound and lively discussion. I would now kindly request Professor Jose Maria to felicitate our panelists with mementos. I would request Dr. Andrew Datta, Dean, Xavier School of Human Resource Management, to felicitate Professor Jose Maria with memento. Thank you, sir. I take this opportunity to thank all our speakers and our moderator for having conducted this insightful session. We'll be starting our second panel discussion at 2:30 p.m. I request our dignitaries on the dais to kindly proceed for lunch. I request the students to please remain seated.